Greetings, Kindred. I am Voivode Makech, and welcome back to our World of Darkness and another episode of Metaplot Monday, and another TLDR. Who would have thought these things would have kicked off in popularity as much as they have? But in my last TLDR, which we did on Blood, we got a comment. Somebody said, "I really like the hunger and the danger it poses. We sometimes gloss over hunting because we focus quite heavy on the political horror and personal goals, but so often there is a wrench thrown in the machine by the hunger dice. That turns it into a seedy superpower game to vampire. That turns it from a seedy superpower game to vampire." Also, on a slightly connected line, could you make a video on Koldunism and how to show in V5 that it does not work like thaumaturgy or the arts of the Banu Hakim? And that was written by Dirk Krisha. I think I'm saying that name right. If I'm not, I'm sorry. You can correct me. I think I said that right. Anyway, so yes, I would love to talk about one of my favorite topics in Vampire the Masquerade, which is Clan Tzimisce, and also their personal practice of Koldunism, their own sorcery. And it's so different from thaumaturgy in pretty much every iteration except for when they tried to simplify things. There is in the Vampire the Masquerade Faith and Fire LARP book, you get the Tzimisce, and you have the chance to come in with a Koldun. And the way that Kolduns start in that game is they start with Elemental Mastery Thaumaturgy, which, if they had designated specific paths of thaumaturgy from the beginning to this clan gets this clan gets this, like the way that Path of Corruption, not Hands of Corruption, but Path of Corruption, was originally specifically for the Setites, for the followers of Set. I wouldn't mind if the Tzimisce were just like, oh, you get Elemental Mastery, and if you want, you can branch into other paths that have to do with elements, such as Lure of Flame, Neptune's Might, and so on. Even weather control would be great for a Tzimisce. If they said, oh, well, Banu Hakim can have Path of Blood and, I don't know, maybe Lure of Flames. I'm not really sure how that fits in there, but it's a thing. But as we've gone over in various other videos before, there are other thaumaturgies out there that don't specifically belong to the Tremere. There's a whole venture line dedicated to practices of self-discipline and their own versions of thaumaturgy. And they've done a very good job in making it so that, yes, you do have specific just thaumaturgy ways you can run things. And V5, I think, is no different. You could very well just go, oh, I'm going to give my Tzimisce the ability by Blood Sorcery. And those, by all means, thaumaturge Tzimisces do exist. And I think there's a lot more of those today than would practice the old Kranas and ways of Koldunism. And I would like to point that out also, is Koldunism is what it is, because it's a sorcery. Koldunism is sorcery. So if you call it Koldunic sorcery, you're just saying sorcery. And that drives me nuts. So, but the way that it's portrayed in so many various rule sets, it can get rather sticky, because there's the classic ways of Koldunism, which are way of fire, way of earth, way of air, which all have a classic bend. Like they have the whole, like, the earth comes up and grabs somebody, you know, and there's 5 levels for each thing. And I don't know, I always thought that it was too much. The same as with the Tremere thaumaturgy, it's too much. There were just too many paths of thaumaturgy. There were just too many ways of Koldunism. And if they could find a way to streamline it down a little bit, kind of the same way they did with thaumaturgy for V5, I'd be a little bit more happy with it. Now, Also, in the past, we've said that the paths of thaumaturgy that we know from earlier editions still do exist in Vampire the Masquerade, and that it's just that the elders of Clan Tremere aren't sharing it any longer. And the game that is out there right now, you're expected to play an Ancilli or a Neonate who has not yet gained access to these things, which is why they've given us Laura Flames as a ritual set, or the Green Path as a ritual set. That it's you can kind of grasp the kind of things that you would be able to do if you had those paths, but they're a little bit more subdued, a little bit more easy to bring into a game setting. And then there's also various types of thin blood alchemy that could be very well reconstructed as a level of thaumaturgy. But Koldunism, in my opinion, does not fit into the same realm as thaumaturgy. Now, Banu Hakim magic could very well fit into that realm, because Banu Hakim magic is based on Eastern mysticism, which runs off of sacred geometry. And thaumaturgy itself, from the Hermetic standpoint, is based off of Hermetic alchemical practices, which kind of run hand in hand very well with that sacred geometry thing. It's just that there are a lot of clans out there that do have access to things such as blood sorcery, which are brought in to Vampire the Masquerade with the concept of mages practicing in hermetic orders and things like that. So it does make a lot of sense. Koldunism, on the other hand, is more of a shamanism. It's more of a one with the land kind of thing. Now, there are some things in the Vampire the Masquerade mythos involving Koldunism that I actually fully disagree with. And I'm sitting here with a Tzimisce clan symbol tattoo on my arm, and using the Tzimisce clan symbol as my avatar on my YouTube page and all that stuff. I love Clan Tzimisce. I think it's beautifully written. But the idea of Cupola being some massive demon has always been like, why would you even do that? Because Cupola's night is literally just the summer solstice. It's a celebration of the sun in the Baltic regions. And they basically brought it down to the idea that Cupola, who's not an individual, is a being in World of Darkness and is a demon, and therefore making anybody who practices Koldunism infernal. We are talking about dark thaumaturgy or infernalism in some fashion when it comes to the idea of what World of Darkness has put down, or at least I should actually say what the old White Wolf Game Factory's idea on what Koldunism actually was. That they sold their soul to a demon, that they have been massively corrupted. And I don't know, I see the Tzimisce just having too much self-respect for that. They're the kind of creatures where evil are honor-bound, and they are going to do anything possible to keep that honor and not give it up by selling their souls to land spirits, because that's what Koldunism should actually be. Land spirit communication, not demonic investments. Now, getting into details on Koldunism, there are other clans that should have types of access to Koldunism under different names. The same as all those other clans that have thaumaturgy and blood sorcery passed around. There are several clans who should have access to a type of shamanism. The Tzimisce, primarily the old clan Tzimisce, but as I remember in the second edition revised Vampire the Masquerade clan book Tzimisce, they were talking about how younger Tzimisce were starting to reconnect with their homeland. They had actually brought out a whole new way of using Koldunism called Way of Sorrow, which fits the Tzimisce very well. You actually harm your targets by insulting them, by hurling insults at them, and it was very Tzimisce. But the Lianin, which is depending on who you ask in game, whether or not they are some wild nature spirit trapped in the body of a vampire, or if they're actually just a bloodline of Clan Gangrel. They practice a discipline known as Ogham. And Ogham is literally making pacts with nature spirits. So I would find that Koldunism would just be Ogham for that. There's a discipline called Spiritus, which popped up belonging to, I believe, a ghoul of Helena at one point in time, but it's become more popular among a Sabbat branch of Gangrel known as the Aramanes, where they're more cat associated. They're all females, and it's a very antebellum kind of thing. They're all found in the South. They all live in these big plantation homes, and I don't even think that they're really part of the Sabbat. It's more of they were part of the Sabbat for simplicity, so they could be left alone more than anything. But they themselves, they practice a discipline known as Spiritus, which acts almost as if it was a land spirit necromancy blend that let them speak to the spirits of animals, gave them the senses of animals, and even turned into a giant cat creature at some point in time, similar to a Bastet's war form. And those also could be considered a form of Koldunism. I'm sure there's many more, but those are the ones that are first coming to mind. I can also see branches of Clan Nosferatu coming up with something like this. Anything that really is away from the standard thought of what spirituality and magic really is. Because the Tzimisce, they are spiritualists, especially the older ones. Now, they don't all fit into that category anymore because of the Tzimisce bloodline has been massively diluted due to shovel parties and things like that over the years. But I think now that they're more independent, now that they've reimagined themselves into the Anarch movement or wherever you want to put your Tzimisce, because V5 has opened up a new level of playability for this clan, they are going to start finding this discipline again. And I do actually have a V5 homebrew called Animism that I will be going over in just a little bit because it is the best version of Koldunism homebrew for V5 that I have seen, and I've looked at quite a few of them, but this one it's clean, it's concise, it contains elements of the old Koldunism, but it has also dropped a lot of things such as rituals. I do not find that Koldunism needs rituals. If it's not just rituals, it should be one thing or another, so it doesn't blend in with thaumaturgy. I don't want it to blend in with thaumaturgy. I don't want it to be something that it goes, oh, well, this is just another power that, that they're copying from the Tremere or anything. And that's actually what caught my eye on Animism, because while I was trying to work out some version of Koldunism for myself, where I was mixing Dominate and Animalism and possibly Auspex together and trying to find some nice, healthy mix of amalgams to create Koldunism, somebody else created a whole new discipline that works on the same standards as V5 disciplines do, where you choose levels to decide what your character can do. So there's no way, given the standard rules of Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition, that you're going to get all of Koldunism. So you're not going to have all of your characters having the same thing if you have multiple Kolduns in your game. And I think that's done very well. Now, I would assume that if you're going to take this, you would be building an old clan Tzimisce. That would be the standard. The old clan are going to be the ones who are going to practice this more. In which case, I would say that your character would have Dominate, your character would have Animalism, and your character would have Animism on top of that instead of Protean. I do love that in the Vampire the Masquerade 20th Anniversary Edition, they created a bloodline known as the Carpathians. And those were old clan Tzimisce, who came with Auspex, Animalism, and dominate, but they were able to learn Protean as in-clan cost because of the arrangements that Clan Tzimisce and Clan Gangrel had made in the past. These are effectively old Clan Tzimisce. I actually do accept those in my game. I like the idea, and the way that I've been saying that old Clan Tzimisce work in my game is if you take certain predator types that allow you to have auspex. For some reason, I've always just like, why do the Tzimisce not have auspex in V5? Because, I mean, it just... I do remember reading something at some point in time where they just put so much emphasis on how important auspex was to that clan, that when two Tzimisce fight, they don't go into horde form and fight most of the time. They actually go into astral projection and they fight each other on the astral plane. And I just, that always stuck with me, that there was a level of higher transcendence involved when you were talking about Clan Tzimisce. And the idea that the old Clan Tzimisce, if you were going to build them now, would just ignore the amalgams. You just don't take vicissitude. Old Clan Tzimisce would literally be animalism, dominate, Protean, and that is it. They are a sophisticated version of Clan Gangrel in that case. They have their castles, they have their manors, they have their oceans of revenants and loyal childer who are blood-bound to them for their services. But giving them thaumaturgy or blood sorcery just never felt right. So I do have to say thank you to the writers of Animism, and we are going to go over that right now. So this is where I am. You can go to v5homebrew.com/wiki/animism, and you will come on here. I am going to go ahead and go over this with you. I want to say thank you right now to Sharei and Thorbes. These names that are not actual names, the nicknames, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing them, but I want to thank you guys. I read through this, it's gorgeous, and it works really, really well. It says that the nicknames for animism are Genius Loki, Koldunism, Krana, which was actually another type of Koldunism in one of the write-ups, Ogum, so that fits, Spiritus, the Green Path, Path of Neptune's Might, and Elemental Mastery. So they are trying to make it so that you can have Tremere in this, and it does explain that also. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and shrink myself down here so I'm out of your way so that you guys can see this as I'm going about it. Here we go. And it says, Animism is similar to blood sorcery in idea, but very different in practice. Major differences include animism requiring the service of the spirits of nature rather than memorized rites and rituals, and requiring not so much extension of will as being a master of the very material of the fiend wishes to manipulate. Despite being considered a form of blood magic, it generally does not require a careful manipulation of blood by the caster. The blood is offered as a payment to the elemental spirits. The ancient Tzimisce who cultivated this power knew the difficulty of hunting in their territories and thus instead invoked their powers through enslaving the spirits of the land. See, I like this description because it doesn't say anything about selling your soul to some demon that White Wolf decided to create out of something that did not exist in the first place. Practitioners of animism are usually known as Khaldun and are almost exclusively Old Clan Tzimisce, though there are Tremere that have reached an understanding of the spirits. Many regular Tzimisce are unable to practice Koldunism, having turned away from the spirituality and perfection this form of sorcery requires to master. However, Koldunic sorcery, that grates my brain, Koldunic sorcery is by no means good. Constant use will cause the very land and earth to eventually warp around the user. And that's always been a constant. Type, we have sorcery. Masquerade threat, we have low to high. Powers of this discipline go from subtle to eccentric. The sorcerer might appear to be talking alone while in communication with invisible forces. To the blatant, plants coiling around intruders or walking on water. One of the things that I really do miss about the old forms of Koldunic sorcery is when you activated the powers, your eyes changed colors, and sometimes your skin would even ripple with things, such as if you were using an earth-based power, your eyes would turn brown and stone would seem to appear throughout your skin. If you were using blue, your eyes would turn a deep sea green. If you were using air, your eyes would turn blue. If you were using Way of Fire, your eyes would turn a glowing red. I always like the description on that. If anybody was to use this in my game, I would probably still have that, because it didn't affect anything, it just looked neat. Blood resonance. Powers from this discipline are each associated with a given element. Air, sanguine. Earth, melancholy, or water, phlegmatic. Spiritual people, or those with a strong tie to the land, survivalists, forest rangers, primitives, and pagans. Those are who you want to feed from to get these kind of resonance from. I do think it's very interesting that they did take out Way of Fire, but it kind of matches with the whole vampires are flammable thing, so that doesn't bother me that much. So, we have 3 level 1s. We have Roots of Power, which is an earth-based power. The sorcerer creates a conduit between her and the spirits of the land through blood, sharing in its strength and resilience. Cost, 1 rouse check. Dice pool? Nothing. No dice pool. The system states, the sorcerer cuts the plants of their feet, bleeding the equivalent of a rouse check's worth of blood on natural soil while standing barefoot on it for the rest of the scene. And as long as at least 1 foot is in direct contact with the earth, the sorcerer benefits from a blood surge to a pool involving the attributes of strength or stamina, their choice when activating the power. The user of the power can move at a walking speed and perform other actions as per usual, but at any point both feet lose contact, the power ends immediately. I love the idea that as long as they're on that natural soil, this is going to really complicate things in cities. This is obviously a power that is dedicated to an older time, when paved roads were not the thing. You have to be on natural soil to use this gift. And the idea that you just have a free blood surge dedicated to either strength or stamina, that's a hell of a bonus. So bravo for coming up with that one. Duration, 1 scene or until contact is broken. I don't have anything mean to say about that power at all. It's so nice and it's subtle. It's subtle and it seems natural. That's something definitely missing from blood sorcery, but blood sorcery should seem unnatural. The next level 1 is Whispers in the Wind, and this is an air-related power. The sorcerer speaks the name of a person and a short message, and the spirit carries it to the destination in the air. Cost, none or 1 rouse check. So there's obviously something that could come up. Dice pool is charisma plus animism. The system states no roll is required if the target of the message is within 1 mile per animism dot of the user. The sorcerer speaks the name of the target followed by a short message of no more than 10 seconds. As long as both the sorcerer and the target are not inside a hermetically sealed space, the message travels in a turn to its destination, where it will be clearly heard by the target as if whispered in their ear, provided they are within reach. Anything the target answers in response in the following minute, again, no more than 10 seconds total, will be carried back to the sorcerer in the same fashion. The first use of this power in a given scene is free, but the vampire can rouse check to enable whispers in the wind for the rest of the scene with the same target. Provided that the message does not arise, the caster can attempt to manipulate the wind to take the message further than the safe distance with a rouse check and a charisma plus animalism roll, each success adding 1 mile to the distance. Forcing the message this way makes it softer and harder to hear. The more distance it goes, perhaps losing a word here and there. The forced communication stirs the spirits, demanding a rouse check for each message. I love the whole description on that. And again, this is nothing that's going to break a game. You could do so much better with a cell phone, but it's made for a time that those things weren't just the commonplace. And I love it. The duration, a single message back and forth or a scene. It's well written, it's well put, it makes a lot of sense. I like it. Another level 1 is Liquid Memories, Water. It's an amalgam with Auspex 1. Hey, look at that. It's a Mitzi power that is demanding Auspex. With a tithe of blood, the sorcerer can peer into the secrets of a body of water, calling the spirits inside it. The spirits, by means of images, can communicate what transpired on, in, or around it from the water's perspective. You're scrying, and I love the fact that you're scrying. It's such an interesting power that just seems to be lost in this natural fashion. I think the Tremere can still scry, but I like this one a lot better. The cost is 1 rouse check. The dice pool is manipulation plus animism. The system states the sorcerer bleeds 1 rouse check worth of blood on a body of water like a lake, pond, river, or similar, and makes a manipulation plus animism check. Difficulty depends on how far in the past they want to peer. 2 for a day, 3 for a week, 4 for a month, and 5 for a year. Add 1 more for each additional year. On a win, the dripping blood creates images in the water in response to the sorcerer's questions. The sorcerer can ask as 1 question plus the margin of success. The answers are detailed and knitted, but are merely images of what was once reflected and happened inside of it. So spying on a conversation that took place by the lake might need some skill or with lip reading, for example. The duration is 1 scene or until all questions are answered. Each question takes 1 turn or more. I like the idea of you pouring blood into water just to have the blood be what makes a recreation of the reflection from the water. I don't know. I've always found Koldunism to just be so much more beautiful than the cold, hard fact mathematics of thaumaturgy. Going into level 2, we have the Cloak of Biting Winds, Air. The sorcerer calls forth the spirits of the wind and surrounds themselves with a whirlwind of furious air that prevents projectiles from reaching them. You basically you're inside of a whirlwind at that point. The cost is 1 rouse check. The dice pool, there's no dice pool on here. The system states the sorcerer bleeds the required rouse check of blood that quickly sublimates into the air as a payment for the spirits. At which point, a small whirlwind surrounds them. While this power is active, all ranged attacks against the sorcerer suffer a -2 dice penalty. The wild winds might create any sort of collateral effects at storyteller discretion. So in other words, somebody might shoot at you and the wind is going to blow the bullet the other way. You guys are going to have to decide as storytellers where those bullets strike. I do like this system and how it works on the projectiles primarily, and you can see how this would be interesting if you were dealing in a Dark Age setting and somebody was shooting arrows at you. The duration is 1 scene. Now we go into Land's Unyielding Grasp. This is for Earth, and this is yet again another, I think it was the first level of the Way of Earth for old Koldunism. The sorcerer bleeds on the ground, and the very land restrains their enemies. I like it. It's nice and short and sweet, and I also know what to think because, again, it's something lifted from old Koldunism. Cost is 1 or more rouse checks. Dice pool, resolve plus animism versus strength plus stamina. The system states the sorcerer bleeds a rouse check's worth of blood in a patch of natural soil, creating a latent trap, diameter equal to the animism dot of the sorcerer. When the intruder enters the patch of land, the earth opens up or plants coil around it, trying to grapple and restrain, in a contest of resolve plus animism versus strength plus stamina. On a win, the intruder gets grappled and can attempt to free itself the next turn as per normal grappling rules. In the old system, it was literally the ground itself would just wrap up against to like the target's waist and hold them in place. The sorcerer can plant as many traps as her animism dots allow. A single trap can grapple several opponents, splitting the dice pool. The elements cannot be used to directly harm an opponent, only to restrain them, but the sorcerer can otherwise act as they please. Duration, until triggered, or a night. So every night, a Tzimisce could wake up and just walk around and go, I'm bleeding a little bit here, and I'm bleeding a little bit here, and I'm bleeding a little bit here, possibly up to 5 times. That's pretty darn sick, but it's also not overpowered because it's not hurting anything. It's literally just holding them still. All right, Dark Depths Water. This is also a level 2. The sorcerer rests inside a body of water protected from the sun by the blackness created by the spirits. This, again, was another old Koldunism. I think it was actually a Koldunism ritual, which works as a Tzimisce's version of Earthmeld. When they sink into the water itself turns black and shields them from the sun. The cost is 1 rouse check. The dice pool does not exist. And then the system states, after bleeding the required rouse check on a body of water big enough to completely hold their body and at least a yard or meter deep, it becomes pitch black, blocking the sun completely. This patch of darkened water cannot be disturbed by natural currents or other alterations and remains effective until the next sunset. Duration, until the next sunset. So this is just a safety place to sleep. I love these. I do. I love them. And they do feel very Tzimisce-esque. Moving on to level 3, we have Fog Walk, which is water. The first time I read it, I said Frog Walk, and I was confused. The sorcerer can walk over water as if it were land, sliding silent, like a rolling fog. So they can walk on water without splashing. The cost is 1 rouse check. The dice pool is dexterity plus animism, and the system states, after bleeding the required rouse check on the water, the sorcerer makes a dexterity plus animism check, difficulty set by the storyteller based on how calm the water is. A placid lake might be a difficulty of 2, while open seas during a storm might be a 6 or more. On a wind, the sorcerer might walk and stand on the water as if it were solid, steady ground for the rest of the scene, and suffer no adverse effects from the moment of the tides or waves, remaining in perfect balance no matter what. The sorcerer can carry a human-sized mass though their speed drops to a walking speed. Grabbing and carrying aloft an unwilling subject requires a contest between the caster's strength plus animism and the other's strength plus athletics. Duration 1 scene. You'll walk on water. This was something that you could do with Neptune's Might. The next level 3 is Invisible Hands, which is air. The sorcerer requests the aid of spirits and asks them to become its arms, allowing to carry around objects at a distance. Cost is 1 rouse check. The dice pool does not seem to exist on this one. The system states the sorcerer bleeds a rouse check's worth of blood that immediately supplements as a payment for the spirits. When I read supplements, I'm seeing them like slicing themselves open, the blood floating into the air and just dispersing, being absorbed by the spirits. For the remaining of the scene, they can lift, move, and interact with objects at a range equal to twice their animism dots in yards or meters, as if they were using their own hands. So, they are still limited to their own strength plus dexterity. Additionally, this allows the usage of the attack skill Brawl plus Melee at a distance. Firearms could be used too at the storyteller discretion. While acting at range, the sorcerer must maintain concentration, doing nothing else. Duration 1 scene. So you are limited by your character's own strength and your own manipulative skills, manipulation skills, not manipulative skills. So I like the fact that you are stuck with your own strength, but the fact that you can lift something up that is within yards or meters based on how much animism you have, that does make it an interesting thing to take into consideration. So if you have potence on top of that, that should be able to help you. The last number 3 is Mother Earth's Womb, which is an earth. The earth opens up, swallowing the sorcerer. Inside its embrace, the most grievous of wounds quickly fade, aided by the maternal instincts of the spirits of earth. So you get dragged into the ground and it heals you. It's earth meld that takes away damage. Cost 1 or more rouse checks. Dice pool, non-existent. System states the sorcerer lies on natural soil enough to contain their whole body and is swallowed by it. Once inside, they can make as many rouse checks as the value of their damage mending, at which point they downgrade 1 aggravated wound to superficial per rouse check over the course of the scene, after which they are expelled again. This power can only be used once per night and counts as the 1 aggravated per night you can heal. This power requires concentration, and because of that, it cannot be used during a fight. Duration 1 scene. So in other words, you cannot sleep in this. I think me saying this is like Earth Meld, but it heals you is a little bit too presumptuous. But you get sucked into the ground, which, again, this was another level of Way of Earth from back in the day. And you can make as many rouse checks as you have healing for your mending value. That means you could possibly heal more than 1 aggravated in 1 night, depending on your mending value. Now, level 4, we get Cupola's Fury, which is an earth. The Koldun smites 1 of its arms or legs onto the ground, sinking it with force enough to allow its bleeding. The spirits of the earth feed on the fury and blood to quickly form simple structures made of the earth and rock. So in other words, you are going to stomp or punch the ground with such force that it will rip you open slightly, that you will bleed from this. In exchange for that blood, the earth itself is going to create buildings for you. The cost is 1 rouse check. The dice pool is strength plus animism. And the system states no roll is required unless it is used as an attack. The sorcerer bleeds 1 rouse check's worth of vitae during the stomp. The spirit quickly creates the desired structure in the targeted place in line of sight. The structures are usually columns, walls, or other naturally occurring formations. But more complex and unnatural can be done at storyteller discretion. The structures occupy an area with the diameter equal to the animism dots in yards or meters. While using this power to harm, the user rolls strength plus animism as a ranged attack. Using the power of this manner creates lances or spikes that can be used to attack several foes with a normal splitting dice pool rules. Duration 1 scene. I have to say that the thing that comes into my mind the most is the fight with Leopold at Table Rock. The interesting battle between the Tremere who thought he was a Toreador fighting all of Clan Gangrel, with the way that he had just spikes of earth just jut up and impaling the Gangrel that he fought. That's what comes to mind, but I can definitely see the Tzimisce using this as an attack or as a way to just build their homes out of the soil itself. I think, as it is for the storyteller discretion part about having more detailed items in here and unnatural complexity, I would say that roll your stuff to get your standard, but then I would say a secondary roll being manipulation plus crafts or something like that would come into play. Because you're not actually doing it, you're trying to explain it to the earth spirits at that point. Flowing wall, which is water, is our next number 4. Tales of vampires' inability to cross running water may have derived, in part, from garbled accounts of this power in action. The sorcerer commands the spirits of water to rise up and form a barrier impassable to almost any being. This is Wall of Water. This is from Neptune's Might. I've used this to kill an Elysium before. When you're in a glass Elysium, don't let the Sabbat find out where you are. That's all. Cost, 1 rouse check. Dice pool is blank here. The system states after touching the surface of a body of water and spending the blood as an offering to the spirits, they rise as the wall of water with a width equal to 3 times the animism dots of the user. The wall may be placed anywhere in the character's line of sight and must be formed in a straight line. The wall lasts until the next sunrise. It cannot be climbed, though it can be flown over. To pass through the barrier, any supernatural being, including beings trying to pass the wall on other levels of existence, such as ghosts, must pass a willpower roll versus a difficulty of 4. Duration 1 scene. Now, this is probably the one that I found that is not written quite well so far. Primarily because it says that the wall of water has a width equal to 3 times the animism dots of the user. Okay, so if you have 5, that means that it is a wall of 15 width. 15 what? 15 feet? 15 miles? 15 meters? It leaves it open. I am assuming feet at this point. I could very well be wrong, but let me point this out here. If either of the 2 people who wrote this gorgeous path happen to see this video, please let me know what you think. I'd love to talk to you guys because you guys have an amazing imagination, first off. But I'll get to flattering the artists in a minute. The next level is Biting Gale, which is an air. The sorcerer sublimates its blood as an offering to the spirits of air, funneling the fury upon an area. Cost, 1 rouse check. Dice pool, nothing's there. System states the user makes a rouse check and spends a turn concentrating, calling the winds in the desired area. The effect covers a circular area with a radius equal to twice the user's animism dots in yards or meters. Okay, since everything here has been saying yards and meters so far, I'm going to go ahead and say, until I'm corrected, that flowing water is also done in yards or meters. The area is centered on the sorcerer, or a spot in their line of sight. Anyone caught in the biting gale, including the caster, receives a 2 dice penalty to all rolls and moves with difficulty. Anyone inside biting gale receives 2 levels of superficial damage for every turn they remain in due to the strong winds, duration 1 scene. Now, I want to point that out. This gives the opposition of the caster 2 dice penalty. A 2 dice penalty in rolls involving moving because of the difficulty of the wind. And it also has the ability to cause 2 levels of superficial damage. This is a level 4. This is not overpowered at all. I love how calm this is. I love how unbrutal this is, because it shouldn't be. And we have 1 level left. There is only 1 level 5, and that is Ride the Winds, which is air. The sorcerer can call up the aid of air spirits, asking them to transport them to a destination. Travel. The level 5 is travel. You're not calling on some massive freaking storm that's going to end up destroying the land. You're not calling up spirits that are going to come out of the shadows and rip your targets apart or anything. This is all about travel. And the stipulations are very interesting. The cost is 1 rouse check. There is no dice pool. The system states no roll is required to use this power. The sorcerer concentrates for a turn and supplements its blood into the air as an offering to the spirits. The spirits then carry the body of the user to a desired destination. The user does not disappear from sight, and thus can be damaged as per normal, but it is seen as a blur once the spirits have taken speed, adding a 3 dice penalty to attacks against them. The power cannot effectively function in caves, buildings, or other enclosed areas, and does not allow instantaneous travel. An entire night using it might help you cross the Atlantic Ocean. But the ultimate distance of the traveler entirely depends on the storyteller. Duration 1 scene. It's a level 5, and it's not a horrible monstrosity of violence. It's travel. I like this so far. This is the best one that I've seen. That could be Koldunism. I plan on printing this out and adding it to my own little bag of storyteller tricks. And if anybody came up to me and said, like, if we were doing a Dark Age game and said, oh, I want to play a Koldun, I'd be like, here's your stuff. Enjoy. This is a beautifully written discipline, and I want to thank these 2 individuals. Let's go ahead and see if this goes anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and open the links to their name. We got, oh, here we go. Here we go. Oh, look at that. Look at that. They've even written Sadistic Surgery, Warform. I'm assuming these are vicissitudes. Yep, originally from Clan Tzimisce. Look at this stuff. Biothaumaturgy. Biothaumaturgical experimentation is just a fun thing. Ritualistic curses. Stigma. Look at these. Lure of Flames. Rules of Warding. Animism. I gotta say thank you. I gotta thank you. I'm sorry I'm probably pronouncing your name wrong, but I'm assuming this is just Sharei. And then we've got Thorbes here, which unfortunately there's nothing that says anything about Thorbes. But thank you guys very much for your intense work that you've put into this homebrew. And Durkriska, I butchered that. I hope that helps you, because Koldunism is just a very special discipline to me. And the first time that I opened up V5 and saw that there wasn't anything for it, because there wasn't anything for the Tzimisce, I was sad. When the companion came out and it didn't have it, I was still kind of sad. And I even still tried to think about, okay, well, if it says that these specific predator types are allowed to be used for the Banu Hakim and the Tremere, if I was doing Tzimisce, I'd probably let them have it too. And I probably would, but I don't know. Blood Sorcery and Koldunism are just two different things. One is a science. Thaumaturgy is a science. Koldunism is spirituality. And that's really all I got for you. I hope this wasn't too much. It is a TLDR, so I guess you guys know what you're getting into. But that is Koldunism. And I think that this is just a wonderful thing. You guys let me know if you are interested in me eventually. I cannot promise when. Eventually. You guys would like me to do maybe a level by level on animism. I'll probably be very happy to do that because I find it a beautiful discipline. But I try to keep more of just canon stuff on this channel as much as possible. But some of the homebrew is just gorgeous. I've read some amazing homebrew for the Bali and the gargoyles and their disciplines, and just seen some really amazing stuff. So I am Voivode Maquette. This is Our World of Darkness. I would like to thank Dirk Krishka, if I'm freaking butchering that name, and I'm sorry. I want to thank you for this opportunity to ramble for nearly an hour about a subject that I love, and sending me on a wild goose chase to try to find a homebrew that I found acceptable that I was willing to present to you guys. If you guys would like anything else, or if you guys would like to submit any ideas for future TLDRs, or even just have a request for me to get on a specific lore sheet or something like that, please, you can drop something in the comments. We have a Facebook page with a community that is just amazing, and we even have a Discord where the links in the description below will be there. I'll also put a link in the description below for the animism thing on that homebrew wiki. And yeah, we can continue this conversation in length if you would like. Thank you for joining me. Good evening.